Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense. We're in Esther. We're back to our roots. We're taking time to kind of pull out some things that we've pulled out before. We just finished chapter 3, talked about what happens when God allows the enemy to raise up his head. Right? Raise up his head. He's going to destroy things. He's going to kill everything that's important to you. He's going to take it all away, right? To look at chapter 4 with me, because in chapter 4, right, Mordecai, Esther's uncle, right, learns about all of these things. He learns about what's happened. This is the famous chapter, right, that we get for such a time as this. And we've talked about it a ton, so I'm not going to go back over it. You can go back and look at some of our teaching on this, but there's some really important things that happen. When Mordecai hears about this stuff, right, he immediately mourns for what he hears in a demonstrative way, in a way that people can't miss what's going on. He starts walking around in sackcloth and ashes. He starts acting as if, hey, the world is going to fall apart. Why? Because the world is going to fall apart. Seems like it's going to fall apart. Right? He took it seriously, and he demonstrated that seriousness. He looked the serious part, right? He does all of the things that need to be done to show other people, not just God, but other people, hey, this is serious. We should take this seriously. Just because God has everything doesn't mean that you shouldn't take things seriously. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't mourn in the midst of it, right? We don't have to live in fear, but we all should know that, you know what, the enemy is real. The enemy is a real problem, and he can do real damage, and to people around us that are going to let him do that. Right? Again, this is not a question about whether the threat is real or not. Right? This is a question about what God is going to do with all of this. Now, again, as with everybody else, nobody's thinking about that in the middle of it. We get to look at this and tear it apart and talk about it and all the things. But God is doing this in real time. All of a sudden, Mordecai is very concerned about his health and everybody else that he loves and that he knows, his people, right? They're about ready to get annihilated. So he does take it seriously. Right? And he asks other people, right, to take it seriously as well, right? He looks at this whole thing, and he knows, beginning to see the plan coming into shape, into view. Right? Sometimes we get so distraught that we're not looking at the bigger picture. We don't see everything. Right? We don't see all the little details like, oh, God set me up for this. Right? If you get a $500 check in the mail today, and you don't know why, and all of a sudden you get a $500 car bill, you know God is God before you. He's prepped for you. These things become important. Right? But sometimes God lets the enemy raise his head. Sometimes it looks abysmal, and we need to know that there's not a lot. Why? Because then that sets it up for the miraculous, the supernatural, right? Everything about man's sense, man's ways says, hey, this is really ugly. Because it is really ugly, right? It is really ugly. We need to sometimes act as if things are really ugly. Not in despair, but hey, let's take this serious. This is tough stuff. Right? Christianity is on trial in our country. It's on the chopping block. Right? People are upset. We should take this seriously. Just because you can still go to church on a Sunday morning, it doesn't mean that we don't need to take seriously that which is going on around us. There are a lot of bad things going on. Right? I pray that you will take them serious. So chew on that. We're going to finish this week up on tomorrow here on Nightly Nonsense.